Greetings, everybody. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of Rhadamant Plays Terraformers. Episode 1, Tutorial Part 1. So before I start, I should explain a little bit of what this game's about. It is a terraforming game, much like a lot of the other games that I've played, like Surviving Mars. That probably is what reminds me most, or Paraspora. Actually reminds me a lot of Paraspora, if you had watched the Paraspora series. But it doesn't have some of the pitfalls that Paraspora has. It doesn't have the overarching big story that Paraspora forced upon you. So it is a terraforming 4X Mars colonizing and terraforming game. I guess I said terraforming twice. So yeah, called the Terraformers. That's fitting. What I'm going to be doing here is playing the tutorial, which doesn't take too long, so that you get a good understanding. Now, the tutorial does a little bit of hand-holding, but it's more or less a default scenario. And then we're going to continue, and you guys will be able to dictate what kind of continued game we have. So the way this works is, when you start a game, there's different types of goals. Red path would be resource production, green path would be spreading life, blue path would be terraforming its atmosphere and terrain, and then Paraspora Ad Astra would be doing space missions. All of this will make a lot more sense later on, but you'll be able to pick what kind of New Game Plus, for lack of a better term, I do. So let's replay the tutorial. And I, of course, am going to be adding in my own flair and game strategy into the tutorial. So welcome to the Mars Colonization Project. A small step for the first colonists, but a giant leap for mankind. The shuttle has landed and your people are ready to settle on the Red Planet. Every man and woman on the ship is aware of the historic importance of this mission and the great responsibility resting upon their shoulders. Their lives will be spent beneath the domes of artificial habitats, but they are not here for themselves. They are here for future of the human race. It will be a long time before the humans can breathe Martian air, but everyone is willing to work tirelessly to make that day arrive. Earth has sent resources to start the settlement and proposes some leaders to represent you on Mars. Good luck. So first things first, normally there is multiple starts that we can pick, generally 3, but this is the tutorial, so it gives you the generic start of 50 power, 29 food, 10 water, and 5 titanium. Up top, you have the goal. The goal in this game for the tutorial is to build up 300 points. Points can be obtained by increasing your income, increasing your resources, trade routes, building things. There's a whole bunch of different ways to get points. And that is how to get the victory condition in the tutorial. Here is support. If it reaches 0, you fail. It's really the only way to fail in the game. But the way this game is designed, the more turns that you take, the harder it is to keep your support above 0. So there is a somewhat fictitious ticking clock, where if you don't watch your support carefully and you don't do what your colonists want you to do, and you're not meeting your goals, you can fail. And actually, compared to a lot of other games, this game can fail you pretty hard and pretty fast if you don't know what you're doing. There's a variety of ways to support your population, either through leaders or buildings or meeting thresholds for terraforming, things like that. But keep an eye on your support up top. So first things first, we have to choose a leader. So at the start of the game, you get a choice between 2 different leaders, and these leaders, every turn is a year, so these leaders retire after, I think it's 20 years or something, and they differentiate each from another in just a few skills that they have, but those few ways that they're differentiated can matter a whole lot. So Alex here, for instance, has a special ability to generate food, and then can also convert a not-owned water deposit into an ocean. Gustav here can generate power, and he gains more science. I'm actually going to go with Gustav, because power and science can be pretty useful early on. They also have specializations. So Alex produces more nitrates, which is kind of like fertilizer, and Gustav here produces more science for the robots I construct. So now that we have a leader, here's our city. And this city is actually going to be raffled off to you all. So in just a second here, we'll have our first raffle timer where any of the subscribers can be named after the basic city. Now I'm going to be going through this tutorial, but I'm kind of going to be giving it my own lacquer. I'm not going to be sort of reading verbatim the tutorial. I'm just going to be telling you what is going on. So in viewing the city, every city has a headquarters, and your headquarters gives a little bit of support per turn, 1, and that can be seen up top in this UI, and then also gives you 1 population, which can be seen up here. So speaking about the UIs here, let me hide this. We have got population. You can also return to the planet view here. We have got building and location count. So there are a finite amount of slots that you can build at a city, but those slots get unlocked when your population goes up. So you can't have like a city with 1 building that houses population and a ton of other buildings. You have to scale it up properly. And then the rest of the UI here is the headquarters, which is giving support. Then there's also comfort. So the radiation protection here is giving us a net comfort, whereas the temperature is detracting from it. There is then, these are sort of the terraforming check marks. So we're in a crater, which gives a little bit of radiation protection. It's cold, at -1. Oxygen level is neutral. And rain, it's very dry. And these all will ultimately affect what you can do with your city, what sort of projects you can undertake. This will make a lot more sense later on. Up here is the specialization for our leader, the advanced machine learning. And then here is the extra Mars enthusiasm because we just started, so you're getting extra support per turn. On the left is your resources. So these are all the resources that you will gather or produce to survive. So you've got food, which is mostly used to build habitations for new populace. Power, which is used to explore and construct. Science. Water. Nitrates. Silicates. Titanium. And tritium. So there we go. What I'm going to be doing... Oh, so the headquarters here is, like I said, it is housing. And there is a lot of sort of positional synergy that you have to consider. So, for instance, if I wanted to support 2 houses and stick some sort of morale boosting building in between, it will support both of the housing facilities. So when you're building your cities, you should plan with that in mind. So, for instance, this greenhouse farm, there are buildings which will produce, which will add to the amount of food production that it can offer through adjacency bonuses. So this game has a lot of adjacency bonuses that you need to consider. So if I'm placing the greenhouse farm, maybe it would be wise to place the greenhouse farm here, because then I can put, shut up, Gustav. Then I can put a farm in this spot, and then have some sort of booster here where the rocks are. Another thing is, unless your leader can clear rocks, each rock that you're going to clear costs 3 power. And really early on, when you're not producing a lot of power, that's actually kind of expensive. So you should also try to conserve your power until you actually need to clear the rocks. Find a resource deposit. So, for each turn that you have, your leader can use abilities. Now, because this is a tutorial, I can only use the Explore ability. So I'm going to have Gustav explore, and it wants me to explore either left or right. So I'm going to explore right, because it offers more tritium, whereas left offers more silicates. Tritium is a resource that can be used to generate power, so it's, in my opinion, just a little bit more important. And as we explore, we use power to explore there, and then sometimes you can actually get power back from the exploration, but we found tritium, nitrates, and silicates, which are immediately added to our resources. And then it also is a tritium deposit. So if we expand our city to contain the tritium deposit, we can claim it and mine it to get tritium income per year. And then you can see the little +1 over here. This is a result of the greenhouse farm that I have. And now we have done everything that we can in this turn, and all I have left to do is end turn. And right now the year is 2050. We end turn, and now it's 2052. All right, that is the raffle, and it goes it goes to Mike. Mahai Goku, congratulations. So let's rename this city. I'll just call it Mike. It's like military, you know, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Mike is in the NATO alphabet like that. So now with the +1 food that we got from the farm that we built on the first year, we have enough food to put down a habitation module, which I'm going to put this habitation module in this spot. And as you can see in the background, it's just aesthetic, but the colony has developed. So these are the structures in the foreground, and the background is like a art representation of the development of that city. Now that I've expanded the population, I can expand the city to an adjacent tile. So I can expand to the tritium deposit, and then click here to mine it. Some deposits will give you multiple options, like for instance, a water deposit you can either mine, or you can exploit the resource to add water to Mars. So there are occasions where there's multiple things that you can do with one deposit. And it wants me to research a project, so let's go back there. So every time you end your turn, you are given a new set of research projects, and I can pick one of these. Now, pretty early on, one of the bottlenecks that you're going to face is not having enough food to expand, and then not having enough power to fund your exploration. So I'm stuck picking between food and power, and because I have a tritium mine now, I'm going to pick power, because I think it's going to be more useful earlier on. So Mahai Goku, yeah, the cities will naturally generate like Earth names for it, or it will be something like New London or something like that. But I'm going to be, of course, naming it after you guys. So now that we have this tritium thermo generator, one of the things that you have to read about is its adjacency, whatever, deficit, the opposite of a bonus. So if I build this next to houses, both of these houses become generate less support, and then therefore it would be triggering the end of the game earlier. So you have to make sure that you sort of structure your buildings in a smart way. Buildings can be moved, but when you move buildings, when you relocate them, they don't operate for a few years. So you can sort of shuffle things around, but it's best to plan ahead, in my opinion. So for the rest of this turn, I can either explore, I can generate extra power, or I can do applied science, which I can't do right now because additional research projects are already done. So I'm going to explore. And given that I'm trying to save up for a tritium, I'm going to go to this zone here because it has the most tritium. Oh no, it says it has a small hint. Yeah, that's fine. It says 3 tritium. Now my tritium is at 7. So in 2 turns, I will have 9 tritium to place the generator. And as I build up resources, build up support, and do other things, we're pushing ahead to the goal of 300 points. So only play through this. Next research project, I am going to take a greenhouse farm. So the greenhouse farm is going to require 10 water, and right now I have 0 water. So it would be a good idea to try to find a well of some sort. Now another thing is, when you expand your cities, unless you have later end game tech, your cities become unhappy if they sprawl. So it's ideal to fill the adjacent tiles first, because as you spread beyond your adjacent tiles, you'll become unhappy. You'll lose support. So I'm going to search the silicate node here. And this silicate node is special. So there's a silicate deposit here, but then this tile also is on a plateau. So there's some planetary structures that you can build that generate more of whatever it is if they're on a plateau. I'll give you a for instance. There is a telescope that you can build, And if you happen to build the telescope on a plateau, it generates twice as much science as it would otherwise. We also have enough for the tritium thermo generator here, and I'm going to stick that generator in this location. So this generator here doesn't border a house, so therefore I'm not going to suffer that adjacency malice. And that is the end of this turn. Marauder, thank you for the resub. Actually, a lot of you. Lurk and Perpetual Cowlick, thank you for the sub and the follow. And Arkrune for gifted subs. Lonnie Lemur and Mark for resubs as well. And Dom Moneta for a follow. Thank you guys. And it goes even further. Actually, I missed a hydrate. So cheers. So this is a new trade route. A trade route allows you to exchange resources with Earth or to build things up in space. So we have now just a generic trade route, but you can actually increase the amount of trade routes that you can get through construction projects to increase the amount that you can exchange. New project, I am going to go with a laboratory. So I'm going to trade with Earth. Right now I'm generating tritium that I'm going to give Earth, and in return I'm going to import water. The reason is, I would like to get this greenhouse farm constructed, but I'm not going to be able to construct it until I get 10 water. So that's what I'm going to prioritize. So down here you can see the max. It's kind of grayed out, it's hard to read. But I have a max of 1 trade route. And this can, like I said, be increased through different leaders or through different structures that you can build. And the way it works is if you buy something, you have to sell something. So it's a barter system. And let's explore north. And I got some nitrates and I got some food. So I have 12 food and it's going up 1 per turn. Also, these 2 zones here all have water. Another thing to note is not so much in the tutorial, it doesn't really matter in the tutorial, but in the real game, being close to the equator tends to be warmer, which makes it easier to terraform and seed life and the like. So generally speaking, I aim to have my colonies somewhat near this equator mark here. New project. I'll go with a habitation module. And let's start exploring these zones with water. So here's a little warning. Right now, this zone here is in a sandstorm. So if I went there, I would actually lose support. So it's best for me to explore the other one and wait for the sandstorm to clear. Now there is a chance that sandstorms will either hit my tritium mine or my colony, and if they did that, they would damage buildings that I would then have to repair. If you can't afford the repairs, they will repair over time, but it takes a long time. It's generally ideal to repair them. So another empty rocky plain. I did, however, get 3 water, which is going to help get the greenhouse farm. And now I am given an exploration satellite from Earth. So the way these work... Oh, and let's pick a new project. I will pick... windmills. So the exploration satellites allow you to explore something without using energy. And if you take a look at the exploration, the further we have to travel from our central colony, the more expensive exploration becomes. So traveling out here is 3 energy. Traveling to the immediate adjacent is 1 energy, and then 2 is 2 energy. So the exploration satellites are best used on far-flung, unsearched areas, unless you're trying to colonize, which I will get into later. So I'm going to spend this satellite up here to get an aquifer of water. That pushes my water up to 10, which allows me to build, let's clear that, allows me to build the greenhouse farm. And then I'm also going to build the laboratory. So this laboratory will generate 1 science per turn, which I can use to trade or sell or consume for other reasons. And then, what do I have left? I have a regular exploration. So if you are worried about losing support, which I currently am not, it's not likely to lose support in the first like 50 turns or so for you to fail. But after somewhere between 50 and 100 turns is sort of the, if you're not carefully managing your support, that's when you could lose. You can go to these nodes here which gives you support. So this one, for instance, is a flat plain, which means it is an area that I could found a city on, and therefore I gain support for. To found a city, you need 30 food and 5 water. I generally try to space my cities out so they don't really overlap with one another, so that when you're expanding out, you don't have to have them sort of compete for the same resource tiles. Because if you build your cities on top of one another, you're gonna have to expand them through these lanes, like out really, really, really far, which then could make your cities unhappy. Best not to do that. New project. So here is the soil factory. The soil factory increases the amount of food for all adjacent farms. So if I built the soil factory here, these 2 farms would go from 2 food per year, or per turn, to 4 food per turn, which is a pretty good benefit. So I'm going to grab that there. I'm also going to start importing soil from Earth because I want to save up for the soil factory. And I will be exploring areas with soil. Now, another thing to note is that little exploration satellite is on cooldown. You don't get it every turn. You get it every few turns. And there's a lot of things in the game which you'll be able to use periodically. So you keep track of the cooldowns. So let's explore this soil plot. And it's rich soil. It gave me food. And then the rich soil can become a nitrates mine, which produces 2 nitrates per turn. Or an agricultural complex, which produces 3 food per turn. That's a good find. As time goes by, the expectations of your colonists will go up, which is sort of the failure, the impending failure that you're going to face, which is why it's important to complete whatever tasks that your scenario has you undertake, because as you draw things out, you will eventually lose. It's not good. So here is a building which would be really good for me to build, a hospital. So this provides 7 support per turn, which currently I'm producing -3. And then not only that, but every adjacent population center gets 1 support per turn as well, which, because of the way I laid out my habitation and headquarters, if I plopped it here, I would get 9 per turn. I need 5 more science for this, but because I'm generating science through my laboratory, all I have to do is wait for the science to trickle in. Or collect it from a large meteorite. So, with that, let's stick the hospital down. And now I've gone from -3 to +6. And if you look up here, you can see the hospital is producing +7 support change per turn. Next project. So, robot hubs. All of your colonists aren't necessarily organic. What a robot hub would allow me to do is it gives me 2 robots, which expands the maximum amount of buildings that I can have in my starting city, but also allows me to expand the borders of the city by 2 as well. So robot hubs can be very useful for strategic land acquisition, for lack of a better term. I'm going to get them just to be able to demonstrate them. So a robot hub won't benefit from things like a hospital. And also be careful, because you can place things on top and override them. You probably don't want to do that. So I'm going to put this habitation module here, so I can put some support building in between. And then I'm going to put the robot hub here. So with that robot hub, it will give me... The robot hub gave me 2 expansions, and then the extra habitation gave me 1. So I'm going to grab the silicates deposit, and I'm going to grab the other 2 adjacent tiles, which, if I saved up a little bit of titanium, I could build windmills, which would give me extra power per turn. If I wanted... So that costs titanium. So if I use my exploration satellite to hit a titanium node like this one, and then use my regular exploration to hit titanium like this, I have enough titanium to put my windmill down. And now I'm generating an extra power per turn. So my current objective is to found a new city. So in order to do that, I need to accumulate 30 food, 5 water, and then only certain tiles can be colonized. So they have different benefits. A lava tube, for instance, has really high radiation protection. So that's going to provide comfort for your colonists. And flat plains here doesn't have a lot of terrain blockers, so it's going to be a lot less energy expensive to colonize. So when you're colonizing, it's easy to just be like, oh, there's a colony here, I'll just slap them down. But it might be wise to sort of analyze the situation so that you colonize an area that you can afford that will benefit people. And also, like I said, it's good to colonize where you're not overlapped. So both of these 2 tiles do overlap with my original Mike colony. But because this is the tutorial, it's very easy to not lose. So I'm not that worried about overlapping colonies in the tutorial. But in real gameplay, yeah, that would be something to be considered. So this food quality supervision gives +1 comfort for every 4 food produced by the city. So currently my city only produces 2 food, but once I get the soil project down there, it will produce at least 4, but probably 6, I'm guessing. So I'll take that. I'm not going to put it down yet because it would provide no benefit. It would just take up room in Mike. And then the other thing to note is these little orange notches is how many structures there are, and then the gray ones are how many structures are left to expand into. So if you counted them up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there'd be 6 little gray notches there, sort of indicating how developed a city is. Because generally speaking, once a city is fully built, you leave it alone, and then you keep spreading out to new areas. So let's try to find a new area to spread to, which is not that way. Okay. It is now election year. Gustav here is retiring. And we can pick up Misha, whose expertise is in bacteria, to import life forms from Earth and to genetically modify them. And constructing bacteria spreaders costs less science. Or George. And because my current goal is to create a new colony, I'm probably going to go with George here. Or because his specialization is earthworks. He can clear rocks, and he can build modular apartments for the food cost only. So he's the man. And I'm also going to take the greenhouse farm, so that I have 1 more farm slot there. So let's go and try to do the found the city objective. I'd like to find a colonizable place out this way, but it hasn't happened yet. Photovoltaic panels, a touring company. So this symbol here, next to the happy face or whatever, is an indicator that it relies upon like adjacent map tiles. I'm going to pick the photovoltaic field. So this project here means that it can only be built on a zone on the planet. So one thing that I could do with the photovoltaic field, this photovoltaic field generates bonus power if placed on a high location, which I have. So instead of exploiting these silicates, I'm going to put photovoltaics down. And now I'm getting 4 power per turn, which will help with the exploration. Come on, give me a colonizable area. I think for the speed of the tutorial, I'm going to just colonize this like lava tube. Or something like that. I'm growing impatient. Oh, here we go, landing pad. So a landing pad allows you to exchange more resources per turn. Landing pads are very small, so it only increases the trade value by 1. So I can sell like 2 tritium and import 2 soil. But it will doubly speed that up. So in order for me to colonize this lava tube, I also need to explore all adjacent locations. So there we go. So this lava tube is now my colonization target. And for that, I am going to need 12 more food and 2 more water. So I think what I'll do is I'll start importing the water. because for food, you know, I'll get that over time just farming. Oh, here's an entertainment center. I'll get that. And sorry, I'm using my food. So I'm going to put the entertainment center here between these two habitation modules because it gives 3 support per adjacent population. So now I'm up to 13 per turn. So now that I have the water, let's sell our tritium for food and keep exploring. Oh, here's a crater that we could have found it in. That might be better. We'll see. So now I've been given a free CO2 factory as a project which will help to terraform. So the tutorial just unlocked some of the terraforming screens on the right. So you have temperature or heat, you've got oxygen, you've got sea level, and then you've got atmosphere. There's also radiation, which is not represented here, but you can also somewhat terraform or build projects to protect you from radiation as well, which can reduce the comfort of your cities. So this CO2 factory produces 1 atmosphere and 1 heat per turn. And here you'll see little thresholds where I hit tier 1 heat or tier 1 atmosphere. So tier 1 heat I hit in 30 turns if I built this now, which I can't currently afford it. And then atmosphere is actually going up already. I don't know why it's at 3, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that I get the CO2 factory cranked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exchange one of my tritium for titanium, because that 9th titanium will be able to allow me to afford the CO2 factory, which I could put somewhere in here. Ooh, I just got food. I think we're colonizing this turn. So, if I colonized here, one thing to note is this location will be submerged if the ocean rises to level 3. So you'll see these little symbols around. Level 3 is actually quite a lot of terraforming, and something that you can easily avoid, but make sure the symbols don't say like level 1, because then we'll become swamped very early on. So this crater is where I'm going to found my city. Keep it in mind of adjacency bonuses. I'm going to put my new city, and this means running the raffle here. So I'm going to call it New Reykjavik. I'm going to put it there. And good luck in the raffle. The timer is up. So I'm putting it here so I can put another habitation there, another habitation here, and then some sort of benefit between all 3 of them, sharing the same spot. All right, I'm going to go back to Mike and put the CO2 factory. Oh, I actually just ran out of power. Or not ran out, but I don't have enough to actually build the factory because I had to clear the stones. What I could have done alternatively is use earthworks, but because I needed to explore this turn, I can't do earthworks and explore in the same turn. So that's not happening. Alright, I'm going to go back to buying the soils, and we'll be able to do it next turn. Oh, so here is a big option. Normally I would allow you to pull for these, but because this is a tutorial, I'm just going to be covering it. So there are different types of bacteria that we can import from Earth. There is this bacteria, which adds 2 atmosphere per turn, and the minimum requirements to spread this is -2 temperature, which is a very low threshold to meet. Or, alternatively, this bacteria, which requires -1 threshold for temperature, and produces 1 heat per turn. There also can be prestige differences. Basically, the way the game works is there are life forms, plants, and bacteria that you can spread on the planet. Bacteria are the easiest to spread, life forms are the most difficult to spread, and then they provide benefits to the regions where you spread them. So I'm going to pick the heat per turn. Now, the other thing is this recharges every 11 turns, whereas the other one recharges every 8 turns, but I'm picking the heat because it's, in my opinion, generally harder to produce heat on Mars than it is for atmosphere. And I'll go for a habitation module as well. You also can only have a certain amount of cards total. So once you have exceeded the amount of total cards that you can have, you are forced to kind of like throw one out. Or multiples out. Alright, so going back to New Reykjavik. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's put the CO2 factory down. And now, as you can see, I am producing 1 heat and 1 atmosphere per turn as a result. Alright, next turn I will have enough soil to build the soil factory, and then I'll start pivoting to grab water. That way I'll be able to make the greenhouse farm and kick my food production per turn up to 6 from 2. That will be big. Over in New Reykjavik, instead of exploring, I'm going to use my leader's earthworks to instant nuke 2 rocks. So I don't have to spend the power for it, because power is a precious resource, and I'm not generating a whole lot of it right now. And here, expectations gone up, so support per turn goes down. So I was making 13, now I'm down to 3. As you can see, it just ramps and ramps and ramps. A massive radio telescope. So this massive radio telescope has a bonus if placed on a high location. You don't have to pick right now, you can always assess. So right now, if we take a look, this aquifer is on a high location. So I could put the radio telescope there, which would be a really good option to do. So I think that's what I'm going to pick. But public baths have the adjacency happiness, and then resident stations give power producing buildings extra power, which would be useful if I had more power buildings, but I don't. Alright, so back here in Mike, I'll put the soil station down, and now I'm generating 4 food, and stop importing soil, and just import water. So in 2 turns, I'll have enough water for the 3rd farm. And then that also means that the food quality supervision, I can put that down. And now the food quality supervision is going to give comfort per turn, because I'm generating at least the 4 food. So now I have higher comfort. And that helps with support per turn. So there's only 2 spots left in the city, and 1 is going to be a farm. I don't know what the second spot is going to be. We'll get there when we get there. And let's use the earthworks to clear out the last 2 rocks here, and that reins in the giveaway. So this will be Dutch 425. Congrats, Dutch. You're a city on Mars now. So here's a gas factory which just produces atmosphere. This is why I went with the bacteria that produces heat, because it is pretty easy. I find in playing this, you can max out atmosphere way faster than anything else. Way faster. But I'm actually going to pick the road paver. So this road paver, you build in a city and it gives you 3 expansions. So it's a useful tool to have your city go wide if you want. No, I'm going to go gas factory. Maybe I'll do an extra terraforming. So we have these satellites, and these satellites I'm going to use to explore something far-flung. So let's go here. And here's a good example. This location will be submerged if the ocean rises to level 1. Level 1 is a very low level, so gotta be careful about that. And then we'll have George here do some regular old exploration, and we'll hit up here. And it's another crater. I'll go with... You know, I'm going to pass. So if I pass, I gain 1 science. You can always scrap a card like this to gain science as well, if you need it. And I'm going to go greenhouse farm. So now I've brought my greenhouse adjacency sort of maxed. And I'd like to build the gas factory. I'm going to build that gas factory here. So now I'm producing 3 atmosphere per turn and 1 heat per turn. And I'm going to start saving up for the bacteria spreader so that I can start to spread that bacteria that produces heat. Thank you for tuning in to the tutorial of Terraformers, which originally streamed live on Twitch May 3rd. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them, given that I am not a veteran of this game. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. Thank you so very much for watching. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel. I'll catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell.